Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to another rousing rendition of Libservative, intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. We've got Bell the Bodysnatcher back on the ones and twos. He, as always, is Corey Walsh.
He's Dan Griffin.
And what a day. I think we came into this episode thinking we were going to talk about a whole plethora of shit. And then all of a sudden, shit started popping off on college campuses. And I don't know about Corey or Bell, but I got some shit to say.
Yeah, I feel it. It's apathetic in nature. Because it's just, we were talking about this on the show a bit. Just, I've ran through the gamut of activism. I've ran through the gambit of protesting. And it's just same goddamn soup, just reheated in the microwave over and over and over again. And every single topic of these protests, I could find like the justice in it. You know, I guess that's the word. Like, they all know justice, no peace. You know, I could find the nature of their end game, you know, on a moral high ground, but it's always a fucking mess. I guess it's just here we go again.
It's the memification and the sloganization,
the virtue signaling,
activism.
You know, activism so it's interesting, right? Because like this is the first time in I guess we're witnessing history. This is the first time in humankind history of the thems and theirs, the he's and the she's, the guys and the girls, of all the culmination of all the different revolutionary movements. I meant to say those as like two different words, like the revolutionary shit, the movements, the protests, the social justice movements, all of this stuff. This is the first time we're seeing it with social media added to it.
Well,
so we're taking
involved, Corey, except the Jews.
Oof.
Jews are left out.
God, why do I feel fucking anti-Semitic still every time we talk about the Jewish people? It's like I'm not anti-Semitic. Like I've never woken up and be like, yeah, fuck these guys.
That was very much that was very much a I'm not racist, but statement you just
right
made.
No, but it's just it's frustrating that like the idea of just the term Jewish people or Jews, because they have a really shitty history of being fucked over time and time again.
And they're taking some undue shit. Like we know that. We've admitted that, even though we are on the side that folks would consider the anti-Semitic side, I guess is the way you could put it. Whether or not it's actual anti-Semitism is
I'm not anti-Semitic,
debatable.
but fuck governments, I guess, is ultimately what it comes down to. That's what it really comes down to.
That's where I think these, and then I'll let you do our housekeeping and tell the people where they can find us and whatever. But that's the interesting part about this is where I guess the language is wrong. Right. Like a lot of these college kids are like, because I've seen the videos, right? They're out there going, fuck Zionism, which is conflated with, you know, being anti-Semitic. Really what they should be doing, what they should be saying is fuck the Israeli government.
Yeah.
Because that's not the same. That's not necessarily the same thing. Is the Israeli government Zionist? Sure. But are all Zionists supportive
protests
of
have
the
a really
Party?
bad idea?
Are they all supportive of Netanyahu? Like if you just use the correct terminology, call out the actual bad people, which is the Israeli government, not necessarily the Zionist movement itself, you might be in a better spot. But anyway, go ahead.
Protest movements have like chimpanzees just hitting buttons and for their marketing team, because they always just pick the shittiest slogans. They always just pick the shittiest sayings.
That's because they're morons now. Protesters are fucking morons. We'll get into it. Corey, tell the people where they can find us, and then we'll really dive into this.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
So before we really dive into the Gaza protests that are sweeping
we have
the
a whole
nation,
segment for that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Before we get into any of that, as we speak on here, April 24th, 2024, at about 8 p.m., because you never know what's going to pop off between now and the time somebody actually listens to this podcast.
Yeah, you got to timestamp this shit for sure.
We gotta talk about our things learned, but I'm gonna set this up this way, because this is something I said to you and Bell prior to us going live here. And I don't think you were against what I said, but you were, I don't think you're in agreement with me. And that's just that I fucking hate activism. I hate activism now in 2024. Activism is shit. It is a watered down version of what it is designed to be. I think that's a lot of what we see going on these college campuses now, and not just over Israel-Gaza, but I mean, pick your pet issue, right? Pick your pet issue over the past at least 5 years. I'll be generous and say 5 years, because it's nothing but a bunch of entitled kids at elite universities who were told by maybe it was their grandparents, maybe it was their parents, depending on their age, who were told how cool it was to march with Martin Luther King and to go out and protest police brutality and try to get the rights for black people to vote. Or again, pick your issue.
Right. Yeah, it literally as trivial as it sounds, just, hey, yes, let us share the same drinking fountains.
Yeah, back when activism meant something, when activism was actually about the cause. It wasn't about how being an activist made you feel. Because that is the shallowness that I get out of activism in essentially over the last 10 years, even before COVID, before George Floyd. I feel like a lot of this was starting. We had people coming out and talking about how they're there for the little guy, but then they're there on their fucking phone taking pictures, being like, look at the rally that I'm at. I am fighting for justice and peace. Go fuck yourself. Activism now is garbage.
No, so here's what I think. Like, activism has always been a collective of people with their own individual grievances coming together to talk about it as a whole. And I feel like it's always been that, to where you have people coming together for a common cause, to where when it came to the civil rights issues, there may have been people who have the same inclination that we do. Like, no, fuck race. This is about just people as individuals having the right in our country. And then there were probably people who were like, no, my race is the one that's being impressed and doing this. And people were coming together for their own common grievances. And I don't think that that's changed between the 60s, like okay, to the 50s, where it was the civil rights movement, to the 60s was the anti-war movement and things like that, to like the 70s, to where it was like workers' movements in the Appalachia area and stuff like that. I don't think it's ever changed between then and now. The difference is now everyone records themselves doing it, like you're saying, to where it makes us feel plastic. And there are probably activists that listen to our show and they're not going to want to hear this. But I think that activism itself has been corporatized and monetized.
And we've seen that. Look at Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter is a good example.
A movement that should have meant something and did. And at the beginning,
you want to get into
something.
During the George Floyd protest, because I'm not above this, I did go to protest during the George Floyd when George Floyd was murdered by police. Like never mind, like there's different stipulations and facts that have come out after that, and George Floyd probably shouldn't have been brought up as the pedestal, martyr, especially when there's people like Breonna Taylor being killed at the same time and things like that. I will absolutely say that. But I went to a protest in Detroit that was put up by a grassroots movement by a person we've had on the show named Tristan Armand, and it was Detroit Will Breathe. And then I went to protests that were put on by people who said they were part of Black Lives Matter out here in the suburbs in my neighborhood. And the difference between the two is like night and day. The first one, the police weren't necessarily friendly. They were literally trying to do the movements that you hear about tactics when you hear about people talking about these different protests, of how if the group strung out a little bit and got a little long, police will try to come in and cut off half the protests and divert them a different way, because then all of a sudden it's not a unified protest. It's just a mob in the streets because they intentionally separate everyone. And then they compartmentalize you and start attacking the groups individually to break it down, because the state doesn't want to protest. The state just doesn't want to protest. They don't want people to ruffle the feathers of just the organized progression of day-to-day life. I saw things like that. I saw people coming out of their houses when this protest was put on down in the city by a group that wasn't backed by corporations like BLM. And I saw people coming out of their houses, seeing it and joining. I saw people way more unified, way less agitation, and way like from the people themselves versus like obviously the state was still being the state. But there wasn't like people like just watching it. There wasn't people on the sidelines. I'm trying to think of the word right now. Like not observers. Oh my God, the
agitators.
Not
That's
agitators.
What Fox News would call them.
Right. It's right on the tip of my tongue. When someone goes like spectators, there wasn't spectators to the protest down in the city put on by a group that wasn't backed by billionaire corporations. In fact, those billionaire corporations were trying to ostracize this group from them, to the point where the leader of this protest I was a part of was on NPR's local station, and he actually was like talking about how he's basically stepping on the toes of the BLM movement and stuff like that with his own individual protest. And so I saw all these things down in the city. And then there was another protest out here in the suburbs that was put on by people that were a part of BLM and stuff like that. And it was marketized. It was just marketed. It was corporatized. And there was thousands and thousands of, just because the demographics of our neighborhood, white people, who I promise you had the best intention, right? They were definitely there to support the cause. But it was basically like, oh, BLM sponsored by Sterling Heights. Like, like it was promoted on Facebook that the
vendors selling T-shirts, I imagine.
Yeah, it was more shit like that. Like it was like all these spectators on the side with their thumbs up going, yeah, we support you and this and that. And they get everyone out there and they do this protest.
It's basically a 4th of July parade at this point.
Dude, it's what it felt like. But then all of a sudden,
Christ.
all the spectators disappeared and the protest went on. Like the protest was supposed to go from like, I forget the exact times, but like from this time to this time. And then at the end, everyone got to get to the microphone and speak their grievances, right? But then there was a subset that decided to keep marching after. And then as soon as that subset, which I stuck with, I had a sign that I held up that just said, why is accountability so controversial when it came to police? As soon as that protest went on, they went back a mile. And as soon as they got past the sectioned off area that the city made, like, this is for you guys. And we went past their little barrier of what a protest is supposed to do. Dude,
can't have that.
Police set up a barricade in front of us and we were on a boulevard. And then the police came in behind us with their cars. A paddy wagon showed up. and they condense this into this area. And like I've seen the videos, you know, I saw the writing on the wall. They were like, they box you in, and then they come in from all the angles, and that's when the agitation starts, and that's when the police move in, and that's when people push back, and then the cameras start rolling. And it's the script they have written for all of the fucking fodder you see on the cable news media about these kind of things. Luckily, Macomb County had a sheriff who, you know, Macomb County like sheriff who people voted for, I think his name's Bouchard, had enough common sense to tell one side to back off. He wasn't there to like play into this shit. And the people continued to yell. The police sat there and just confined them from walking into the middle of an intersection. And then everyone eventually blew off steam, and it did fizzle out. Now, the reason why I'm even bringing that up is because in like 90% of the other cities in our country, it goes the other way. And then everyone gets their video, their B-roll of shit hitting the fan. And so what I'm saying is, I saw what a grassroots protest was, and I saw what a corporatist protest was. And
I'm honestly
seeing
more
the
interested...
difference. I'm seeing the corporatist bullshit on the campuses right now, and getting back to what you were saying initially about how you're done with activism. You're done with activists, because we're kind of seeing that again. The people are well-intentioned. They have a cause, that's right. But there's people that are coming there with their own grievances, and it's always the squeaky wheel makes the most noise. And then the media is just pouncing on that, and we're just seeing a bunch of wild shit.
Well, and that's honestly a great lead in to these protests that we're seeing pop up, even probably still to this minute as we sit here at 8:10 p.m. On Wednesday, April 24th, because we are in a situation here where it's going on across the country. But I think this is a situation where we get to call out everybody's bullshit. And I'm talking about the bullshit coming from the activists, as I alluded to a couple of minutes ago before Corey told his interesting story, as it pertains to conservative media. I shouldn't even say conservative media, because it's not just conservative media. It's just all establishment media, because they're all Hamas is responsible for everything, and Israel is an angel. To college elites, the college elites that put us in this situation. So I don't know which of those three would you like to start with, Corey? I'll let you choose, and then I will give you my take, and we can get into the conversation that way. You want to start with? We have the activists, we have conservative, but really just corporate media, and then we have the college students themselves. Which would you like to start with? All on different sides, all full of shit, and we're going to explain why.
I feel like the conservatives is just such low-hanging fruit, because it's so blatant of their hypocrisy.
That one will be an easy one.
Do you want me to start, or you to start?
No. That's your choice? Okay. I wasn't sure if that was your choice. I thought you were still sitting there thinking about it.
Wait, hold on. Oh wait, no, we're still on our things learned. Never mind.
It's fine. We don't need to do that today. We got more important fish to fry.
Well, because I was going to bring Bell in for his things learned.
Maybe we can finish the show with it. Let's just do it a little bit differently this week. So conservative media. So so today I'm at the gym, right? And I didn't really know that these protests were taking place. Apparently,
Bell said he learned nothing. So that's it. There we go.
Apparently, it started
go after the trad cons again.
Oh yeah, well, we're kind of going to do that right now, but not really. But that'll probably be next week after Ben Shapiro gives his take on these college protests, sometime between now and next Wednesday.
Oh, we just need to do another Kent State. That's all we need to do. Just go in there and you just put down the iron fist
and blow them all away.
Kent State.
So I'm at the gym today, and I didn't really know. I like kind of seen through social media that there were some protests going on, some Gaza protests going on at Columbia. And I was like, well, whatever. That's not surprising. That's been going on basically since October 10th. I was like, okay, whatever. So then I'm at the gym and I look up and I see Fox News is on one of the TV screens, and I can't really read it, but I'm seeing that like, oh wow, okay, NYU's going ape shit. Apparently, Speaker Mike Johnson made a speech at Columbia. I don't think that was the catalyst to these protests, but I'm sure it didn't help. And then it started. It just kind of starts to spread and starts to spread and starts to spread. And I'm noticing, because I don't know if you know this, but at commercial gyms, so anybody who doesn't go to these, they have like CNN and then Fox, like they have like a bunch of TVs, and it's all news stations. So they have like all of them on at the same time. Like ESPN's on there. I know CNN's not covering it. I'm like, okay, well I guess that's not really a surprise. So I come home. And I'm like, let me just throw this on. Let me just throw on Fox News for just a minute, just to, not because I want to listen to the commentary, but just to, you ever do that just to kind of see what the actual thing that's happening is?
You had to keep tabs on the mainstream take.
Yeah, I wanted the meat. I wanted to know what was going on. So I threw it on, and I kind of got the gist of what of what was going on. It looks
wait, real quick. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I need to definitely correct you on this.
You're
not turning them on for the meat or to find out what's going on, because both of these channels are so fucking stupid that they're also trying to figure out what's going on and how to spin it towards the narrative that they want. They never know what the fuck's going on. They're just like, oh man, just apparently everyone hates Israel. What do we think about this, John? And then they bring on some John guy, and he's like, yeah, I talked to this fucking guy who says he's a part of Hamas, and he says he does not like Israel. And they go, yep, there you see, this whole protest is about hating Jews. All about death. And then MSNBC is like, yep, we saw one cop who's an asshole hit someone who said because they were standing in the middle of the street, and they hit him with a baton. So all the cops hate everyone who is even standing up against the Jews, because we also hate them. And it's just that's what the mainstream media promotes.
Dude, it's so funny because you basically just described the coverage that I saw. I probably watched it for 10 minutes. It was like right at the beginning. I haven't
watched any of those channels in forever. Isn't that wild?
It was like right at the beginning. It was at like 5 o'clock when the 5 comes on, and Janine Pirro comes in with her fucking witch face, and and Jesse Waters is out there, and Jesse Waters
with this stupid look like this.
He's retarded Tucker Carlson. Like, that's what Jesse Waters is. And I'm not even upset that I use the R word. He's a
Tucker Carlson that grew up in Flint, Michigan.
Yeah. So Jesse Waters, like, they come on, and Janine Pirro goes, Jesse, what do you think about all these crazy kids out there making these protests supporting Hamas?
And these elitist kids whose parents make $1 million a year.
And Jesse Waters comes on and says something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically what he said. He goes, well, we sit there and we always complain about, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't do that in this country. We never negotiate with terrorists. By the way, we always negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah, so he's basically every time.
So he's already wrong. But then, like, even if you want to go with we don't negotiate with terrorists
except this
narrative, he goes, yeah, these universities are out here trying to just keep the peace and get these protesters off the campus streets so we can continue with the classes. Well, they're out here, they're negotiating with terrorists. So already now Jesse Waters has been wrong once, saying we never negotiate with terrorists, but now he's actually saying that a bunch of Gen Z turd sandwich college kids are terrorists. Yeah. That's what he said. You can go watch the 5 from Wednesday, April 24th, and watch the first 5 minutes. Jesse Waters says that these fucking college kids
exercising their First Amendment right.
Right. Whether or not they're right or wrong doesn't matter. He goes, they're terrorists. And here's what's interesting about that, Corey. That is
Julian was
the
like,
exact.
absolutely.
No. Well, that's not interesting at all. The interesting thing about that is, what do you think in I don't know, what would it have been, February of 2021? What do you think Jesse Waters said when he got on the air and was talking about January 6th? Do you think
They're
he was
calling
making
them
fun?
terrorists.
They're calling these
It's
people terrorists.
unbelievable. I can't believe that they're calling these people who are just expressing their First Amendment rights on the Capitol grounds terrorists.
Right. Same tactic these people
Dude,
use over and
it's just-
over and over and over again.
Just throw terrorism and terrorists into the bag with racism, transphobes, homophobes, transphobes.
Well, that's the other interesting thing that I saw, Corey. So
It's a word that doesn't mean shit anymore. Terrorism doesn't mean shit anymore.
Nor
Like,
does
dude,
anti-Semitism,
Dan,
nor does
if they're
racism.
terrorists, they're the worst fucking terrorists I've ever seen in my life because they didn't even kill anyone.
Well, not yet. Let's just keep our fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But the other bullshit that the media was trying to
because
pull
they're fucking
was,
terrible at it. Because did you see the video of the one girl who was like virtue signaling, and she was out there in the middle of like one of like the areas, because like protests always like create this little circle where people can go and they can stand there, you know what I mean, and they can all stand together, and then they have a space where people can go out and talk. And there was a girl there, Katie Halbert's the one that brought attention to this for me, like on Twitter. This girl was out there, and on the front of her shirt she had Jew written, and on the back it said Israel, and she was standing out there talking about, I'm a Jew, I'm not afraid to show my face, like doing like a grandstanding thing to this group that was like protesting against Israel. And like behind her, you just see some people who are probably on acid, just like dancing. and then like in the background, also there's like Jewish people holding up signs that say Jewish people for freeing Palestine. And like she was out there like trying to do this. I'm not sure what she was trying to. She was trying to go viral. She did, and all the wrong reasons. But because the mainstream media is saying this is all anti-Semitic behavior and that Jewish people aren't safe anymore. And it's like, here this girl literally went into the middle of their crowd and said, I'm Jewish, I'm not afraid to show my face. Probably hoping, I don't want to project on her. But it seemed like she was trying to get a rise out of it. And everyone was just kind of ignoring her.
Well, and that's the narrative that's pushed too, right? It's like there's this rampant anti-Semitism on campuses. And
hey, Bell,
listen,
look up if that's even tough to look up, because anti-Semitism rhetoric right now, because we have leaders in our country saying that,
and that's conflated,
right? Because who was it? Who was the recent representative that said anti-Zionism is anti?
Mike Lawler said that just today on Fox News when he was interviewed by some, I don't know.
So
all the talking heads are the same.
If he's saying that, then other people are saying that. So like the numbers are going to be convoluted. I wish that we had a sort of a bureau. I wish we had like a group or a bureau that investigated things on the federal scale.
So now you're trying to expand government to investigate anti-Semitism. And
no, you completely missed what I fucking said. You idiot. I said I wish we had a bureau that investigated things on a federal scale.
I just wish we had a bureau that investigated things.
God damn it, Dan.
I know
that's the FBI.
Corey, you're about to make fun of the FBI. I know this.
God damn it. But instead, they just had to pay out a $200 million fucking settlement to the 500 people who were fucking raped by Ukraine halftime because they were all telling the FBI that, hey, we're being investigated for a year. That was just.
I dig it.
But anyways, I digress.
No, well, I'm glad you brought that up too, Corey, because there's a lot of that's a lot of, if you turn
what I was getting at real quick was, I don't know if actual anti-Semitism actions came up or just more people are talking about being pissed off at the Israeli government because they're conflated. So the numbers, we're not exactly sure.
Right.
It's just like when they said Asian hate went up during Wuhan, when it's like, did Asian hate go up, or were people just talking about China and how they're pissed off about this idea that this vaccine that this virus may have came from China, and everyone is going, well, they mentioned China, they obviously mean Asians.
Right. It's the same tactic that the I don't even want to use tradcons because I don't want to make fun of them too hard today. But all of the conservatives make fun of for what the quote unquote woke people are doing. And they're not wrong. Like, I never thought that they were wrong. They were absolutely right to make fun of the wokies in this way, but they're using the same fucking tactics where they conflate these words from the English language to make them mean something that they don't. So should college students stop walking around campuses and saying, should they stop saying fuck Zionism? They should, only because, not because it's conflated with anti-Semitism, but because there's a better word. It's just like, actually, it's two words. Fuck the Israeli government.
Yeah.
Just fuck the government. Like, that's really what it is. It's not even about Zionism. It's certainly not about anti-Semitism.
That's what I was getting at when I feel like it's like plasticized and like corporatized, because of the fact that like when like the George Floyd protests coming on and they just go defund the police. And it's like, well, that in itself is a controversial thing. Like,
that's when you look broad.
Right. Like when you look back, like the Martin Luther King protests, the Malcolm X protests, during the civil rights movement, whether you want to get into the more radical, violent shit with the Black Panthers and Malcolm X, or the more peaceful stuff with Martin Luther King, they were both working interchangeably to bring about more civil liberties and more rights to the American people. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if there was catchphrases and stuff back then, things that you could put into a 120 character tweet, because that just wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing. I mean, we could ask some folks who were there.
Right.
Find out.
But like now it all comes down to a hashtag. It comes down to that viral phrase. And everyone tries to make a catchy phrase that's less than 120 characters to make it viral, which arguably is the right way to go in the landscape that we have today. Mm-hmm. But God damn it, be better on your marketing, because when you have to try to group in millions and millions and millions of different ideologies and ideas behind one movement, you're going to alienate millions and millions and millions of people from even paying attention to it.
Corey, to me, that's part of the tactic. That's part of the tactic. If you keep people arguing, if your marketing is like, say, Black Lives Matter, right? So what's the response to that going to be? All lives matter. Well, now all lives matter. Well, that's a racist thing to say. That's why you just keep people fucking fighting with each other. You keep the movement alive, and you keep the merch rolling.
That's why, going back to what I said between the two different protests that I went to, the one protest led by someone who wasn't backed by corporate dollars led to people being arrested for protesting, and then them having to go to court systems, and I think even to the Michigan Supreme Court. It might have gone that far, I'm not sure. But it led to precedents being set in our state that the right to protest is protected by the Constitution, which is a win, if anything, for what they did, versus the protest of Sterling Heights sponsored by the city of Sterling Heights. That didn't lead to shit. It didn't lead to a chaos moment where the media would have pounced on it to show, but it didn't lead to any sort of legislative change in the city. The city has nothing to lose.
Sterling right. Now we're actually
County, Sterling Heights are fucking majority white or Chaldean, who Chaldeans had no skin in the game in that protest or what's going on now.
I think it's a bad look.
They just came here to live a better life because America bombed the shit out of their country. I don't mean to laugh at that, but I laugh to keep myself from crying, Dan, because
I'm with you.
Is just a fucking
I'm with
mess.
you. It's in the lack of depth to any protest kind of gives it a bad look, because you're in a spot now where Bell's put a bunch of stuff here in the private chat about NYU has shut down their protest. USC has closed their main campus to the public. And you're looking at a place now where you're going to get some sympathy from the statists out there that are going to go, yeah, the protests are not well done. They don't have the right things to say. So let's go ahead and shut them down. Like, those statists are wrong, but now they have a leg to stand on because your protest is shit. Because your protest is so shallow. Don't, if you are an actual activist, you don't give statists any ammo. You don't give the Janine Spiros and the Jesse Waterses of the world the leeway to call you a terrorist and to say that your protest means nothing. But that's what protests have become now. They're so shallow, they're so self-serving that you can kind of understand why some people would take the statist road and say, oh, yeah, it's fine. Absolutely. Go shut these protests down. I'll give you another example of that. All of the protests, there hasn't been one recently, but I think a few months back, there was within 3 days. I'm talking out of my ass here, but I know these things happen at certain points in the country. These protests where they go out and they block airports, they block roads, right? You know what I'm talking about? How people do this shit. So, not a good look, dude. You are not going to bring somebody to your cause by blocking them from getting their flight home from Seattle to fucking Tulsa. That's not a way to get somebody to join your cause.
You're not going to get someone to join your cause
and inconveniencing them.
Now,
that doesn't work that way.
In the same breath, I'm not saying that the hammer of the state or the muscle of the government needs to come hammer down on them and start beating the shit out of people and tear gassing people and stuff like that. I don't think that's right either.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, if you keep me from getting to my flight on time, I will be I will be an
You're going to be the next viral video of you running people over.
I will be an actual fascist tomorrow. Like, whatever, dude. We got to centralize power. This is some bullshit. We can't be doing this to people.
But that goes to my point. So that goes exactly what I'm saying. Because because I've only been redirected because of a protest once. I was in Maryland for a wedding, and me, my dad, and my brother, we went down to Washington, D.C. And this was at the height of COVID and the George Floyd protests. So in downtown D.C., most of the I don't want to say most. The media made it seem like most, where it was really maybe half a block where windows were broken out and there was boards up and stuff like that. But you see the same building boarded up from a million different angles to make it seem like the whole goddamn city's fucked. It wasn't like that. But there were buildings with boarded up windows. Absolutely. And the only time that that was thrusted back into our face was after we went and saw the monuments and did all that. And then we went to go leave, and we had to drive straight down a road and then turn right. And we literally had to drive 3 blocks, turn left, go 4 blocks, turn right, turn left, because there was a protest.
Streets are one thing. I'm talking about highways. I'm talking about
are a little fucked.
And leading into the airport.
You know what? At the same time, the first person that starts that protest of stopping a highway has bigger balls than I ever will, because I will never fucking walk into a street where there's 80-mile-an-hour cars coming my way. What do? They send out the guy with the lowest IQ or the biggest fucking idiot or the most passionate one? Who goes first, right?
Corey, probably the most marginalized person in the group.
Yeah, so that's racist.
Right? Why are you sitting at the marginalized person?
Is that what they do? Is that the tactic? No, you go.
Yeah, the the tactic is if the guy gets hit or the girl or the they or the them gets hit, well, it was
Yeah, no,
it was
you're absolutely
transphobia.
right. Because
It was racism.
if they send out some white dumbass, that's what the media is exactly going to say. Some fucking idiot got hit by a car while trying to protest. But if they are someone of color, it's race.
Somebody that obviously voted for
So
Donald
that's
Trump.
interesting, right? Like that's a bit right there. I'm gonna write that one down. But yeah.
Corey, the last thing. That's all right. The last thing is the college elites. That was because we kind of talked about the college students and why they're full of shit. We've talked about I'm going to say in this case, particularly the conservative media, but it's not really the conservative media. It's really more just the establishment media. The last group that has been completely exposed for being full of shit during these protests is just the elite universities themselves, the college elites. This is the bed that you made when you raised I shouldn't say raised, but helped raise and educate a generation of, let me choose my words well here, entitled assholes that put feelings before reality and make activism and protesting a watered down shell of a vehicle to virtue signal. Did I put that well? I think I did. The elite universities made their beds when they did this shit, right? It started with the congressional hearings where the Yale, the Penn, and the MIT presidents couldn't say that calling for the genocide of Jews could be considered harassment or bullying on campus. That was the start of this.
They hammered
made
down.
This bed.
They hammered down on drinking on campus and hazing and date rape, and then look what we get. Bunch of kids running around protesting.
Really, you're gonna conflate this issue with date rape?
No,
those are two very different things.
I know. I was doing a bit.
It wasn't a good one. You're gonna have to work on your material.
Yeah, I was workshopping here. What I was saying is basically they're really hammering down on all these like kids who are just like partying and going crazy on campus and giving them all of these fucking expulsions and like penal crimes for doing things that kids do.
I don't think you're allowed to say penal anymore.
I shouldn't have said date rape in the first place because that was the one that was like really fucked that joke up. Everything else is like trivial, like boys will be boys, and it's like date rape. Fuck. Yeah, no, I blew that one.
These elite universities did this to themselves. Yeah. I'm serious. Like there's no other. There
was more jokes in there when you said that, but I'm just gonna shut my mouth.
This is not a comedy podcast, Corey. It's not. This is very serious topics that we talk about here. Bell's over there slamming a Miller Lite. We have to move on.
Is this? Yeah.
This is going to be an episode all about Israel. Do you have anything you want to wrap this up with, these college debates? I think I've made my feelings very well known. I think everybody's full of shit. Everybody that you hear talk about this is completely full of shit.
It's frustrating, right? Because like the morality behind their movements is absolutely justified.
I didn't bring that up. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I just think they're full of shit while they're doing it. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Like they're like, hey, we just want to stop seeing kids being bombed. And it's like, yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. But
they word it wrong, right? They word it wrong with the
it's just the branding.
Zionism.
I'm going to school for marketing. So like the branding is just terrible.
The branding for these protests. And that's it too, Corey, because I'm actually in 100% agreement with the cause that these college students are actually fighting for. And that's another thing that's an issue with the media narrative, where it's like where we are is where it's like, just if we just want a really powerful government, like let's just take the name of the government out of it, right? We want a really powerful government to stop throwing down 2-ton bombs on a people that can't defend itself. Yes, that people had a faction of high-powered folks that went in and murdered a bunch of that government's people, and that was fucked up and it was wrong. And
that faction was also propped up by the very people that murdered.
Right. So isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how it's easier to talk about when you just don't say that it's Israel? Like, what if it just wasn't Israel? Like, let's just throw this thing into a simulation.
Should that be?
Let's just throw it into a simulation.
When we talk about this. Because do you remember when all this stuff first started to pop off? I was like, I don't even want to touch this with the 10-foot pole because it's just a fucking sloppy mess.
It's important though, and we recognize that.
It was like having a blind person do masonry. Like it was just a fucking mess. That's what it was from the beginning, and it still is, and it's still a fucking mess. Are we surprised it just didn't like get better?
Yeah, we're not surprised.
Are we surprised that like the messaging got better since October 7th? Because there is a bunch of people in these fucking colleges that are just like, yeah, Hamas is actually doing a good job. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But that's the thing is like, where are those people? I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. I haven't even seen it anecdotally.
Anecdotally, no. But you do see videos of these, and again, they're just a bunch of fucking 18-year-old college idiots. Like we're like, when one breath we're like, well, they were too smart, they should have known better than to take on these $100,000 student loans as 18-year-olds with their brains are developed. But then in the same breath we're like, like I can't believe that these college educated people are actually thinking about human life. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, that's a good point.
It's just insane to me. It's just absolutely insane to me.
Maybe I've missed it. There probably are some real like people that on these college campuses that are like actually touting Hamas. But I think
you see the chance. You see the chance that even if they don't really mean that they want every Jew to die, they're out there chanting Hamas
are you talking about
tropes.
Are you talking about from the river to the sea? Like that kind of shit?
A little bit.
Talk about free Palestine. But that's what I'm saying,
free
right?
Palestine is not nowhere near intifada or whatever they call it.
So you'll have the corporate media come out and talk about how from the river to the sea is an anti-Semitic phrase.
Dan, I'm not even going to pretend I know what river or what sea.
It's the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea.
I know the Mediterranean Sea, but there's probably rivers in between.
When I understand it's in Hamas's charter, but how many of these college students do you think actually know that? We talk about how stupid they are all the time. Like, it is just so clear to me that this isn't about like propping up a terrorist organization that, by the way, we could get into more and more nuances about why that terrorist organization exists and why it's Israel's fault, right? It's just so much deeper than like, oh, they're just shouting anti-Semitic tropes on college campuses. First of all, they're too fucking stupid to understand what they're actually saying. And second of all, even if they were smart enough to understand what they were saying, you still have a scenario where you have a very, very powerful government propping up the terrorist organization that they are allegedly chanting support of. That's what's so interesting is like, I'm not actually blaming these college kids. Like, we're not, because we're millennials. We're not old enough to have college kids yet. But Gen X, the Gen X,
like 12.
I get it. Like maybe the older versions of us have college kids, but like we like it's that whole trope about like how older generations always shit on younger generations. And I always look at it and I go, yeah, you're the ones that fucking raised them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't stand when people do that. When like older I don't ever want, I hope I never do that to my kids or my grandkids.
No, you're absolutely right. The older generation bitches about participation trophies. Like
you gave them to us.
like us as like 5 or 6 year olds were like in charge and created participation trophies for us. And now like we're 30 and then like the boomers are like, yeah, these fucking 30-year-olds, you know, they grew up in the participation trophy generation.
Who gave those to us?
And it's like, wait,
who gave to us?
What parents came out and pretended that we were all such special snowflakes that they demanded participation trophies for us? Because I promise you, it wasn't some 6-year-old on the baseball field that goes, I demand a trophy because I was here the whole time.
Yeah, like you raised us.
A parent was like, no, I spent $50 for this season for my kid to be on your baseball team. I need a trophy to show for that, to show my friends, that my kid is doing something.
Oh God, dude, that's it. The narcissism of like the younger baby boomers. And I don't think Gen X is. I don't think Gen X is narcissist at all. I actually kind of dig Gen X.
Well, was it Gen X or like, so for our generation, who are the parents? Is it Gen X or boomers? Because like
mostly boomers.
Definitely on the outside. My parents I'll give you way. I wasn't planned. Like,
I understand. I'll give you an example. I'll set this into context for you. Right, I was born in 1988, so I'm like a middle millennial. I'm like right in the middle.
Same
of millennials. My parents were born in 65. They are the very beginning of Gen X. They had me when they were 21. So they were young parents. They are older Gen Xers, and I am like a middle millennial. So most millennials were born to baby boomers. And Gen Z is born to mostly Gen Xers and older millennials.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, I should say middle millennials even. Like my age.
Yeah, my parents were boomers. 57 and 46. 58 and 46, sorry.
So I'm kind of an outlier. I'm a millennial who was born to a Gen Xer. Yeah. Like I'm kind of an outlier.
I'm a millennial born to boomers.
Yeah, which most of us were.
Hey, let's bring Belle in here real quick. How old are your parents, Belle?
My father was born in 61. My mom was born in 64. My dad is 62.
They're both boomers.
Yeah.
Those boomers.
They're both young boomers. They're at the tail end
is that what that is?
65.
Like tail end
64.
Of it?
Actually, 64 is the cutoff. My dad was born in 65. He's like the first year of Gen X.
Jesus, my dad's a whole 20 years older than your
dad. Yeah, your dad's got quite some stories, though.
As a boomer would.
Oh yeah,
he's like a forced dump.
Do we have to? And we can even keep Belle in for Belle. How much of the what the fuck am I looking for? The Israel-Gaza debate did you watch with Dave Smith and Dennis Prager and Batya Ungar Sargon? I think I pronounced that right. And,
I watched that because I watched
you watched the whole thing.
No, not the whole thing, but I did watch Dave Smith shit on everybody a little bit.
Should we save this? Should we have this conversation for another day? Should we do a special episode? What are you guys doing this weekend? We're doing show prep right here on the air.
Oh, I'm snagging bodies.
Should we do a special episode? Because Corey needs to finish watching the debate. That's number one.
I might be able to work something Saturday afternoon, evening.
All right.
Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening.
What about Sunday?
I work.
Why don't we go ahead and end this podcast and then we'll talk about it? What do you guys think about that idea?
That sounds like a good idea.
Corey, tell the people where they can find us.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
When?
Today. Not
What?
yesterday. You can
Not
do it
tomorrow.
tomorrow if you follow through. If you're not some
Well, no.
piece of shit. If you're not one of those
I honestly-
assholes that goes, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow and then doesn't. Don't be an asshole. Just do it right now.
I
It
don't know.
takes 2 seconds.
I don't know how good this episode was. I didn't expect to spend the entire episode talking about the protests today, but here we are, 55
Yeah.
minutes in.
Here at the end, I didn't have anything I learned this week, but I have something I learned within the past hour.
All right,
What's that?
let's hear it.
Do you know why all of the Middle Eastern countries and Asian countries over there have
Over there?
Stan at the end of their names?
Doesn't stand mean something like land?
It does. I didn't.
I
know
knew
that
it!
You know what's funny?
It
Now that you're
does.
saying that, I didn't even go over what I learned this week. We went into
No,
Dan's
none of us did. No, I didn't say what I learned this week.
You said that activist pissed you off.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then we went off on a whole tangent for 5
Yeah.
minutes. I just had a list of things that everyone thinks makes them feel safer, but doesn't. I found it on cracked.com. I was being a little lazy this week for things I learned.
That is the most BuzzFeed of what I learned this week I've ever heard in my life.
What? You don't follow cracked.com? Dude,
I'm
you have
glad
no
we didn't
idea
get
how
into that.
much shit I've learned from cracked.com.
We're not a sponsor, by the way.
We're not. It's just for the past 10 years I've been following them on Facebook and like reading their articles and stuff. And there's actually some pretty interesting stuff on there.
It's like it's almost
Yeah,
like.
it's a little bit interesting.
You think that? Do you think that's how like let's think. Do you think that's how like a 50-year-old wine mom feels about Joe Rogan?
Oh, I learned something interesting.
That's some interesting stuff to say.
I never really thought of it like that. Probably.
Oh,
You
this
know
is
what?
so-
Joe Rogan has some good points.
This is so making a TikTok video. Anyway, for Bill the Bodysnatcher on the ones and twos, he as always has been Corey Walsh.
He's Dan Griffin.
It's been Libservative. And until the next unfortunate episode, we are out of here.